Joining us now is Barnaby Joyce, former Deputy Prime Minister and Nationals MP. Barnaby, always great to see you.
Good to see you too, Carol.
Anthony Albanese, he's made this speech over the weekend in which he distanced Australia from the US. This was
very dangerous.
Yes.
Very, very dangerous.
Well, expand on that, because it seems like our relationship with the US is already on tenterhooks. And now he's gone and said, well, we don't need to be that close to the US. What impact is that going to have?
Look, first of all, let's recognise the sacrifice that American servicemen made during the Second World War. They were killed in numbers far greater than Australia, and ultimately it was for the protection of Australia and protection of the Imperial Japanese Army that was already in New Guinea, that had bombed Darwin. Let's not forget that. It was not a mythical threat, it was a real threat. My grandfather, he fought at Guadalcanal, so I'm very aware of this. The next thing is we should be very aware of the fact that our Defence Force is way below par, what it needs to be. We don't have the numbers. We have 6 submarines, which at times, not one of them is serviceable, and we can get to the sea. We have frigates that are way past their use-by date. We have so-called warships, which are merely glorified frigates. Without the United States, we do not have the capacity to defend Australia. That is absolutely empirically clear. And so this idea that we are now in a position where the American president and the Prime Minister of Australia are not talking to one another, that is disastrous. And this quirky, bizarre speech that the Prime Minister gave, that we're going to sort of go it alone. With what, Prime Minister? With what are we going it alone with? And you're sort of cuddling up to a totalitarian regime, which has already sort of taken over the South China Sea, has incarcerated over 1 million Uyghurs, has basically ramming Philippine ships, has done live fire exercises in the Tasman Sea adjacent to Sydney, our biggest city, and has said basically research vessels, which are, just working out the oceanography around Melbourne. I mean, this is really, really bad news for Australia, and very, very, very dangerous for us.
Well, let's play some of that speech and the part that is so objectionable to you right now for our viewers.
Curtin's famous statement that Australia looked to America was much more than the idea of trading one strategic guarantor for another, or swapping an alliance with the old world for one with the new. It was a recognition that Australia's fate would be decided in our region.
I mean, there's not a chance that Trump's administration wouldn't be aware of this.
First of all, it's wrong. It's factually wrong. You have to remember that even Curtin was incredibly aware of the threat that was coming to Australia and his reliance on the United States. You've got to remember that Curtin, before the war, was arguing in the 1937 election for the rearmament and the build-up of Australia's Defence Force. I don't hear that from the Prime Minister. We also understand that Curtin was dealing with the issues of how, with the incursion of the Japanese into the Pacific, who was the reliable ally to protect Australia. If we'd got this wrong, if we had lost, Caroline, you and I would not be having this discussion. We would be over. And if we get this wrong in the future, Caroline, you and I and your viewers and their super funds and their houses and their kids and our nation is over, is finished. And anybody who denies history and thinks, oh, no, it's all different now. No, it's not different. You can just go turn on your television set. You can see how different the world is now. It's exactly the same. And, you can't play dice with Australia like this. I mean, I know that the Prime Minister's got his nose out of joint because he feels, slighted by the President of the United States, and he's got a little bit on his spleen, and he's going to show how big his muscles are. But his muscles are not very big at all, actually. And he's got to park that, get over his ego, and say, how do we open up an engagement of conversations at the highest level between the Prime Minister of Australia and the President of the United States? And to be quite frank, that requires that, that Mr. Rudd, who, is not a bad guy, but he's in the wrong job in the United States. It's very much the wrong job. If he has to be moved on to somewhere else, well, you've got to move him on, because your number one job, Mr. Albanese, is the protection of the Australian people. And if we if we don't have a US alliance that's working, we are not protected and in a world of trouble.
Oh, it's very frightening. Barnaby Joyce, it was so good to chat to you about that. There's no more pressing issue right now, I think. Unfortunately, we didn't get time to go to more topics, but I appreciate your time tonight.